Today on the Cameron Journal podcast, I am joined by Bria Rose. She is one of these new authors that does dark fairy tale retellings, which is very exciting, very book talk, very romantasy, I feel. Which has recently been a topic of conversation around here because my mother, who does not read those sorts of books, accidentally bought one the other day and was quite horrified, and she was telling me about it all yesterday. So, she for those that know, she bought a cord of roses and thorns and was horrified. And I'm like, Akatar is a interesting place to start there, Mom. That's a lot. But it was we're gonna learn all about her writing process and everything. Before we get into the chat, I want to remind everyone, if you have not signed up for Cameron Journal Plus, to support conversations and journalism like these, please do so. It's only $5 a month, or I think about $45 for the year. So it's for less than a couple of books you can be supporting chats like these. If you are a writer and you are interested in getting to a place where you're going on shows like these but don't know how to get started, make sure to check out the Cameron Journal Academy and our two writing courses, because we will get you there to where you're going on podcasts like these. So make sure to check those things out. Don't forget to follow me on socials, of course. Welcome, Bria Rose, to the Cameron Journal podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, yes, yes. So, why don't we start from the very beginning? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your book.
Well, hi again. I'm Bria Rose, and I do a lot of different things in my life.
Hmm.
The writing thing has actually been a more recent endeavor of mine, but to that, that's something that gives me a little bit of credibility to write these fairy tale retellings, is that I used to be a Disney cast member at Disneyland.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like that gives me a little bit of credibility when it comes to writing these books. But definitely when you can't, or when I'm not writing, you can definitely find me reading, traveling. I'm definitely watching a lot of anime right now. So you'll see me at home watching my favorite animes.
Well, yeah. Well, let's since it's a rather bit of a new thing, and I know people get into writing for different reasons. Why don't we talk about like what inspired you to be kind of like, oh, hey, I have a story and maybe I should write it down, sort of thing.
So back in high school, and I can't remember if it was my junior or senior year, my friend was like, how about we write a book? I'm like, okay, how about we write a book? And it blossomed. And then it got kind of shut down where we're like, 10 years later, we picked it back up. Like over the years, we kind of picked it up, put it back down. And then I ended up in 3 months writing the whole thing. And then she kind of got her hands on it. And then she was like, hey, I kind of need to take a step back. I'm entering my master's program. I'm starting a new job. I'm kind of busy right now. I'm like, you know what? This last time I picked up our book, I was bit by the writing bug. Like these ideas started to form, and I just wanted to publish as many books as possible because I just have this innate desire to get all of these stories out of me, or else I feel like I'm going to combust. So I was bit by the writing bug, and I'm like, you know what? Go do your thing. I think I have a really good idea for a book of mine. That's so funny. I actually bring up A Court of Thorns and Roses because I read that book that actually gave me the inspiration to write my Beauty and the Beast retelling.
Yeah.
And so I actually had the idea in the shower. And then I had to
Where
stop
all
and I
the
had to
best
call my
ideas
friend.
happen. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yes, yes, yes.
I think so. And I actually came up with the ballroom scene specifically. And I'm like, you know what? I love Beauty and the Beast. It is my first, and like I'm looking up because I'm in my bedroom right now. I have like a Beauty and the Beast section and like multiple areas of my room. And this story has kind of transformed itself into something that I never truly like thought possible. So it took me a few months to write the first draft. Thank goodness I found my editor, Erin. Hi, Erin. I will never stop singing her praises. She's incredible, and she really helped me transform, like I said, my book into what it is today. And I mean, I didn't go to school to be a writer. I didn't wake up. I actually did wake up one day and decide to be a writer. But I don't know how to actually do it, how to create these dynamic characters. And with her guidance, I have a way better grasp on it now. Um, like for example, so my story is a dark romance, Beauty and the Beast retelling with a twist, where Belle's the Beast, Beast and Gaston are brothers to get trapped in her castle. And at first, it was a very much a rage book. So Calathea was vengeful and angry all of the time. But that's not how you create dynamic characters. You know, she's also sweet and sassy now. She is sexy. She is, riddled with guilt and there's so much that she goes through that, really trying to make her a boss babe and make her angry at the appropriate times, so it was definitely a process. It definitely took about 2 years to really have a product, have a whole book that, I was proud to show the world. And I really hope people enjoy it as much as I do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's that's an interesting that's really good. Don't I would never shy away from how you got to this because there's a lot of people who are probably in the same boat that don't necessarily know how they would get started, but they think they might have an interesting idea or they've been inspired by something or whatever have you. Um, so it's really it's okay to kind of lean into that. And also I think that wonderful process of you had something, worked with it or figured out a bunch of technical things that you would have had no way of knowing, sort of thing. But then keeping with it. And I think the great thing about like that process is it shows that it's really a persistence game. It's how long
Yeah.
you stay and stick with it and are choosing to, keep with it and all this sort of thing. So, and I love the story about you and your friend. I have a similar situation with a buddy of mine wherein grad school has we started a book project years ago. We actually did comic books with it at first. Then years later I said, "Oh, we should turn this into books because with comic books you have artwork and that's a whole other process and it's very expensive." I said, "Oh, we should just write this out," sort of thing. And then he started a PhD program in history. I went to get my master's of fine arts in creative writing and had other projects and a lot of other stuff to work on. In the middle, I was still doing this show when I was doing that. So it was
Wow.
literally like, yeah, so my schedule was kind of like grad school, this, recording over. I mean, we expanded, the Cameron Journal brand a ton in those years in the middle of that. And so that project hasn't been touched in quite some time now because grad school has killed it for the both of us. So I was just laughing. I was thinking about that when you were telling them. Be like, "Oh, I've been there. I've been there. I've definitely been there." So
I actually get
it's
that because I have my master, so I completely understand how that is.
Yeah, I mean and for me it was I had not been so I thought I was being quote unquote smart by getting a graduate degree in my early 20s, like, oh, when I have the time and all this type of thing, even though I was running a magazine during part of that degree, and he and I started writing that book when I was in that degree, all this sort of thing. And then that ended up not working out because I didn't end up it was a precursor to going to law school. I didn't end up going to law school because of the recession. And and then when I went to do creative writing, which is much closer to what I do now, I was not ready for the time commitment, like at all. And it was much more intense and way more time involved than my previous program had been. So I was barely staying afloat for about 2 years. So it was, yeah, the program director in the very first week said, "You will think about this program every minute of every day until you turn in your final assignment." And I laughed. I'm kind of like, I've already been here, done that. It's not that bad. Like, learn to manage your time properly. No, she was 110% correct. And I was completely out of my depth, out of my element. It was, yeah. So it's a lot. It's quite intense, but
I cried my last two assignments. I told mom I can't finish it. She's like, "Yeah, no, you're going to finish it. Well, you paid for it. You have to finish." I'm like, I can't finish. This is like a 30-page paper. Like, I'm crying. Like, I get
yeah.
it. It's hard.
Yeah, no, yeah, well, my my last assignment was the complete packet of everything that included the creative thesis, which is in that white box over my shoulder there. And it also included everything else, teaching practicum, all this stuff. It was 115 pages was the final packet. And I remember like the moment I turned all of that in and I was kind of like, oh my God, for the first time in 2 years, I have nothing to do with like it's all done. Like I have to not think about it anymore. Like it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So yeah, it's a lot. It's very intense. It's a lot going on. And it's really it's a time sink. You know, that's I think the big one is like it's not necessarily that complicated. It's just it's a lot of time. It's hours in, you know, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
so, which honestly, but that's also, I think, the kind of the moral of this little diatribe we've gone on down. The moral of the story here is that kind of writing is a bit of the same way. Like it is, it's that time in. And so I love how you talk about like, yeah, you had a draft, you found someone to really help you with it, you know, all this type of thing. And I know you've worked out a lot of these details and everything. And I think that's wonderful because you kept going with it. You kept trying, you kept developing it through all of this sort of thing. And that's really the key. Honestly, that's really the key. So if people are thinking they can't or they have an idea that they've been inspired by it and maybe want to do it, whatever have you, this is living proof. It's really about staying with it
Yep.
more than anything else. So, you also mentioned though you have a couple other books coming up as well. So, what fairy tales are you going to reverse around and deconstruct for us next?
So after Her Dark Promise came out, I actually got a really cool deal to have a special edition cover done of it. So that was a few months, and I just don't want people to forget about me. I am a first time author, new on the scene. Never, just no one knows about me. I feel like I could have the next Harry Potter, and if no one knows about me,
Right.
then, that really that's unfortunate. So I told my editor, I'm like, okay, we have a special edition cover coming out. I want to write a shorter book that we can kind of maybe publish early summer so that people don't forget about me. Something maybe like super spicy, like a novella, a spicy novella, because I'm working on a Klaus and Caroline themed book from Vampire Diaries because I believe that
Nice.
they're end game. So, but that's going to be like a whole universe, I think. For sure, it's going to be at least a trilogy. So that's a little more planning. Like I want so many Easter eggs and it's going to be a lot more planning. So I told her, hey, let's do something real quick, real fun. And so I wrote down a list of Disney movies and I was going down and then I'm like, Pinocchio. Hey, wouldn't it be funny if Pinocchio is a bleep doll? And then I was like, oh my gosh, what if Pinocchio was a bleep doll? And
Yeah.
she's like, why do I love that? I'm like, why do I love that? That was really kind of meant to be a joke. And now it's kind of turned into this whole.
Pinocchio's gonna become a real boy. That's yes.
Yes, he is. So he's going to be sold to a so Geppetto makes dolls, bleep dolls. I don't know what I can say, what I can't say.
You can
So
definitely say fuck. Just go ahead.
can I say sex?
Yes, yes, all of it. We had
Okay.
I had a sex therapist on 2 months ago, and
Okay.
she also her actually you would love her because her shtick was teaching women to have better positive attitudes about sex through spicy books,
Yes.
and she was also a spicy book author. Her name's Christina Braver. And so yeah, so we went there. I just mark it as over 18, and we go from there. But yeah, Christina Braver, she's really nice. You can go watch the video on the channel. But she's a
Yeah.
spicy writer, and all uses that to
Okay.
teach like positive things about sex to women who may be nervous
Yes.
about that. Yeah. She's really great. So yeah. So
Okay. Well, he's a sex doll.
yes,
um,
exactly.
so yeah, I'm excited. So so Geppetto makes sex dolls for high profile like couples or politicians, people who maybe have more like kinky things that they don't really want to play with other people about because they don't want people to know because they're politicians, they're actors, they don't want their secrets to get out. So Geppetto makes these dolls that belongs to these people, but the people that he gets sold to, like I said, is a couple, and it is going to be like more of a healthy throuple situation. And there are high stakes, secret society. We do have Pleasure Island with the whale, who is actually a man. He has a beef for the people who, pay for these dolls for different reasons. So there's a lot of really cool things that's going to happen. So it turned into from this novella to this big, like 80,000 word count situation. And I'm really, really excited actually for what it started as a joke. And now it might be one of my favorite books. And that's so crazy how that kind of happens. But in the meantime, I actually got a really cool deal with One More Chapter, who is part of HarperCollins.
Mm-hmm.
They want me to write a spicy Shrek retelling. So
Nice.
I'm really excited for that. So I have a few projects coming up, and so both of those are, I'm hoping Pinocchio comes out around September. Because it became a bigger book, unfortunately, I wasn't able to have it out early summer or even this, next couple of months, but I'm really happy with the way that it's going, and it might be a year later. But people are still talking about me, so that's great. I'm in the meantime, I'm doing book signings, and I'm doing, I got on a couple of book conventions, so I'm telling myself, give myself some grace. It is okay if my next book comes out a year later. The fact that it took me about 2.5 years to get this first book out, I think I'm making pretty good progress for this second one. So, and then it's currently in recording, but I have an audiobook of Her Dark Promise coming out with Jacob Morgan and Grace Noble. So I'm pretty excited for all the really cool stuff in this next year. After that,
Absolutely.
I'm not really too sure what's going to happen. Hopefully I can get back on contract with One More Chapter to write another story for them, but really it's up in the air. I mean, I've been given so many opportunities and we're not even a year in. I'm very thankful, and I'm just excited to see what more comes out of it, out of this whole writing thing once I am more well known. More people
No,
know
I
about
mean,
me in
there's,
general.
I mean, it's such a huge, I mean, people don't necessarily know this about the business side. So I also work for my book publisher as director of publications, anthologies, something or other. Publishing is becoming suit media. And people don't understand that the romance genre has always been, bar none, the biggest book genre out there. It's actually restricted from being on the New York Times bestseller list because it would take up the top 10 all week, every week, and nothing else would ever get on. Um, And so I'm not surprised that it continues to sell because it's always sold well. Back in the Harlequin romance days, those sold by the case effortlessly sort of thing. I think what's really interesting about this sort of new crop of writers like yourself and everything, um, I think one is a lot of the premises are quite interesting. Like I kind of look at like Outlander, the like Scottish farmers thing. That's like my mom and my grandma's generation. Like the
Yeah.
present generation is like what you write, like a fairy tale retelling situation. We've got reverse harem situations with one woman, with one. Like millennial and Gen Z women have a much broader view of like what's possible in these worlds,
Yeah.
sort of thing, and are just exploring every which way, um and I think also, in a lot of cases, we're seeing a bit of fluidity in gender and sexuality in some cases, not always, but in some cases, and I think that's very emblematic of the younger crop who are kind of taking over this genre and going there with all of this and exploring these new stories and everything. So it's a very interesting and growing genre, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
attracting a much younger crowd than it used to. I mean, it was, when I was growing up, those bodice busters were for, usually older women sort of thing, sort of thing. And nowadays it doesn't matter. There are married women in their 20s reading, they're older, it doesn't matter anywhere. The lid is off the pot. It's going everywhere. So,
So, okay, I have a story about that.
yeah.
I so my home, I call it my home, but my home location that has just supported me so much is the Barnes and Noble here in the Art and Fair Mall. I'm in like Sacramento,
Hmm.
and love them to pieces if they're seeing this. But I came in and they're like, "Oh, hey, someone called in and they came in, just to see you." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm making my way up. How cool is this?" And I look over, they point, I look over, it's a 13-year-old girl with her entire family.
Oh my. Oh
and
my.
and I'm just like, okay, I'm like, are we sure we're okay? Like, we know what this book's about, right? Like, this isn't. this isn't sanctioned by Disney. I'm not going to appear at Disneyland and talk about this book, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but she was so excited, like, oh no, she reads Haunting Adeline. I'm like, well, actually read Haunting Adeline because that scared me straight of like, I got to be really careful with my life. So
Right.
yeah, it's crazy, but I'm like,
Yeah.
go you. I'm like, honestly, she's probably gonna read Wattpad, you know? So like the fact that they're
Yeah.
supporting her and they're like, it's a book, who cares? I'm like, okay. So she's like, you're the first author she's ever met. She's so excited. She's very shy. It was a really fun interaction. And
No,
it
that's
just the age
great.
surprised me because,
Yeah.
it just surprised me for a moment. But it was so much fun. I've had 16-year-olds come up to me. It's just they are getting younger. Would I sell this to like a 9, 10-year-old? No, no, no. At 13 and I guess 13 and up is I don't know, but like you said, different ages. These new generations, man.
Yeah, no, I mean it is no, it is there was we were my a couple buddies of mine we were watching a channel they were talking about the book talk phenomena and romantasy and all this type of thing and they were kind of like, "Oh, bro, we found a book about publishing to watch them." I'm like this will be entertaining. And so because they're both very very straight and are just not aware of this world at all and so hilarity did definitely ensue. And then the next day my mom literally called me. She's kind of like, I don't know what I purchased, and I'm kind of like, this is hilarious, Mom. You need to return that immediately, like that, sort of thing. But yeah, no, we have fun here. But yeah, no, it is. We have this just the amount of I'm as big as this genre has always been. I'm still a little bit gobsmacked by the business you all are doing and how
Yeah.
this has grown and how many women are into this and their book boyfriends and all this type of thing. It's become a whole social phenomenon, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yes.
ready for people to make my characters their book boyfriends. I'm so
Yes.
ready.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Um yeah, I've definitely someone of course because you probably don't into this as much, but I tend to I write a lot of historical fiction stuff and other sorts of things, not really in that genre. And of course nowadays this is the new advice all of my friends have, is, oh yeah, you should, write one of those sort of thing. And I'm kind of like, I don't think men belong in that genre. I think the women are holding it down over there and I'm gonna let them, I think is what we're going to do. So
I've
that's
read some pretty hilarious things that because I'm in a lot of Facebook groups. So some people are like, "Hey, look at what this person wrote," and the way I remember reading one excerpt where the woman didn't have a vagina, and I'm just like, they didn't. I'm like, do we not know the female anatomy?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
if we're gonna write about it, we should know about it.
right.
I'm
It's
not saying that
like,
was a male or I'm not saying it was a male. I don't know who wrote it, but just the things that people don't really know about the human anatomy, and it's just there's some research to be had if you don't know, and that's okay. There's no
right,
no harm,
yes.
no foul, but definitely don't write that. That's crazy.
Yes, yes. No, and that's a bit awkward, I think. Google exists, AI now exists. Chat GPT will tell you what to do, what to do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very fascinating thing, but I sometimes get different ideas that I'll probably never pursue on it. But I still it's really a lot of fun to see all of this happening and the response that is getting and you to be doing so well so early on. So that's gonna be
Yeah.
quite, that's gonna be a good and exciting feeling. And so a long
Yeah.
way from standing outside in the hot sun in a character costume, right?
Yes. It's very hot at Disneyland, let me tell you.
Well, there's no trees. That's the no shade.
There's
in
no
Southern
shade.
in Southern California. That's a problem. So, let's talk a little bit about process. Do you plot and plan? Do you write it
No,
as
no,
it
no, no, no,
comes?
no.
Yeah, you just write it as it comes then. Oh no, you've frozen. Hang on. Yeah, so when it comes to process and everything, do you plot and plan? Do you write it out straight? How does a book come together?
This is very silly. I have bars. I have bars. I have bars.
It's okay. Streaming video can sometimes be difficult.
I highly apologize.
No, it's okay. I'll just cut it out. It's fine.
Okay.
But let's pick right up with your answer on process. So
Okay.
I'll have just asked the question. Go.
So my process is a little different. Learning how to, I just thought okay. I thought I needed to do it a certain way. When I was first starting, I thought I had to write everything chronologically. I had to have an outline. I had to know, pre-plan every single thing that happened in my book. Um, because that's kind of like what, when I researched how to write a book, like what is the best way, the best streamlining process. They say, oh, outline for sure. Make sure you have all your bullet points, everything you want to talk about. And I have learned that that is not my process. That is not how I was meant to write. If I cannot see it, then I cannot write it. Um, and then I'm also like a puzzle person. I love puzzles regardless, but the way I write is I like to write the bigger stuff, like whatever pops in. So it seems like I'm most excited about, and then I'll put them together. And if things don't end up fitting anymore, that's okay. It might be a little bit longer of a process to write, but I can't, I kind of use not the boring parts, but the filler parts in my just kind of like the conversations that need to happen. Sometimes there's conversations that don't have a lot of action. There are the quieter moments, the um I don't want to say filler because they're so important to the story, but
Mhm.
it's not as fun as like a sex scene to write, or it's not as fun as fighting a dragon.
Right.
So there's some parts that are definitely a lot more fun to write, that's a lot more clear in my mind. So that
Mhm.
is kind of more my process that I'm learning is there's not one right way to write. Some processes might take you a lot longer than maybe going, and some people I'm like, they go in knowing exactly what they want to write. They're like, oh, because I'm on like a lot of, like I said, Facebook groups, Instagram. I follow a lot of people
Mhm.
and they talk about their process. And I remember watching one person and she was like, oh, yeah, today's going to be this person's point of view, or today's going to be this. I'm like, but what if you don't? What if you just don't know? Like they're on a very much a time, like a schedule. So
Yeah.
that doesn't work for me. And that might change one day, but I'm okay with that process right now. I'm okay with what I'm doing.
No, no, I always tell people who write like that because I live and die by an outline. I'm autistic, so I need to have a plan. I need to have a concept because if I don't have it, my brain just stops from too many
Yeah.
options and things and whatnot. And so I just interviewed someone who also was an outliner, and I said, really, we're outliers. We're outliers outlining because I said the majority, there are 310 episodes of this show, the vast majority of which are authors. And I said, of all the people that I've interviewed, the vast majority don't outline. Most people can sort of sit down and write out, they have a loose sort of plan and they just kind of go from there, sort of thing. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm always excited when I meet a fellow outliner, and I always reassure people, who don't, to see like, well, based upon the people I've had on this show, the majority don't. So take heart, sort of thing. Um, I find it a little bit difficult if I'm trying to foreshadow things and all this type of thing to not be able to really do that well. But by not being able to plan in advance sort of thing. But I appreciate, what gets words on the page. If you go look at, the Faulkners, Susan Sontags, Amy Tans of the world, they all have their each very weird, usually not terribly straightforward process for writing. Um and so everyone has to find their own path, but that's why I always ask that question, is to show people how much variety there is and how different it can be for everybody, and to find your own process. I do I have a method called storyboarding where I help people really dig into it. And I used that with a project I was writing with someone, and it was very helpful for them. I teach it in my course, but I actually tend not to use it myself. I do very light outlining, where I basically have the chapters, I basically kind of know what's going on, but I leave a lot of room for other things to happen. Now, sometimes that works out very well. Like it did with Sweetgrass Saga, which is my master's thesis project. I have another project I've been working on in some form since 2014. It's a high fantasy trilogy, all this sort of thing, and I have been stuck on an early chapter that is set up for a bigger storyline. It's not even that important, but I've had no clue how to do anything with it for a long time. And there's not much in the outline. I just am not quite sure how to get the it is a conversation that needs to happen, don't know how to get it started, and I've just finally had a breakthrough. It's taken this long. And so yeah, but so it is that it's that diverse. Like it really is that diverse. Um so that it's very important to for people to understand that because of the experience you had of yes, if you go read all the writing books, they'll all tell you outline, 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 and here's how to, all this sort of thing, and that doesn't always work, or some other form of it might work for you. You have to find your own path, like you did. I'm so glad you said that. So other writers, find your own path, sort of thing. So it's
You know,
perfect.
that's so funny you brought up like the outlining, the way that you use is like storyboarding, but you kind of do like a very vague kind of like outline, like a not basic, but just a
Yeah,
light outline. I have learned, I forgot to mention this earlier, but I have learned also that I can do headings on my Google Docs because that's where I write.
yeah,
And so I'll have a big scene. I'm like, okay, um, the dragon attacks. They have a heart to heart. So my rough draft ends up becoming my outline. So I don't
yeah.
start with it, but as I'm writing, I'll think of a big idea and then I'll kind of put it in the order I think it should go. And then when I have inspiration, I'll go back to that chapter or that little section, write a little bit, and then kind of skip around and write. And now I have like 15 scenes that will eventually maybe go into 1 or 3 or however many chapters. So that's another way to outline is kind of taking those big scene ideas like for Shrek, they're gonna go on a quest, so how do I get, and then I ask myself, well, how do I get there? How do I go from her not wanting to talk to this guy to agreeing to go on a quest with him? So there's a few steps before that. So I really, when I need to have a breakthrough, like on my own, like when my editor is kind of busy doing her own thing because she writes, I'm like, and I have no one else to talk to. I'm like, you know what? Let's work through it. Okay, what needs to happen? What are the conversations that need to be had? So
Yeah.
it's another thing.
No, yes, and that's always that's kind of the hard part sometimes is getting all that figured out. And then sometimes especially, you know, with like the fantasy project where there's a lot of world building, it then has to be the okay, this needs to happen. How would that happen in this world in this context sort of thing. That sometimes is a whole other thing. And when I talk about world building, I talk about building resources for yourselves, figuring stuff out in advance and all this sort of thing. So it's yeah, it's very, very important sort of thing. So that's no, that's very good. That's very good. And yeah, and having the heading and also the in Google Docs the headings are helpful for navigation purposes. You can
Yeah.
jump around the document a lot faster in the navigation tab if you have all that put in. So
Yep.
it's yes, I'm a big fan of one of the when I do developmental editing, one of the first things I do is go in and put in all the chapters, especially for like nonfiction, is put in all those chapters because like now we can actually get around your book in a timely,
Yep.
timely and efficient manner.
So
So
good.
yeah, no, it's very good. It's very good. All right, well, we've come to the portion of the show where we do plugs. So why don't you let us know where we can keep up with you online, check you out, and of course, buy your books.
Well, you can find my books on Amazon, Barnes& Noble. I'm eventually going to hopefully start selling signed copies and some special edition copies on my website at authorbriarose.com. If you want to follow along on the journey, definitely go to the website to sign up for the email list. But if you want to do socials, 100%, I have TikTok and Instagram at, again, Author Bria Rose. I've made it really easy. Everything pretty much is Author Bria Rose.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you for coming on the Cameron Joel podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for this episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Visit us online at CameronJournal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I love to talk to my followers and listeners, so please feel free to get us on social media at Cameron Cowan on Twitter, and we'll see you next time on the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you.